Hello students, welcome to this class of MA. I am Dr. S.S. Vedwan, Department of English, Arts College, Alwar. Today we'll talk about R.W. Emerson and his corpus of writing. Dear students, Emerson, born in 1803 and died in 1882, was a great thinker and transcendentalist, and he was a very admired person in the literary circles of America. He laid the foundation of transcendentalism and valued his thoughts with rich American traditions. Born in Boston in a family of clergymen, he graduated from Harvard. For some time, he worked as a school teacher, and he was also trained for ministry and became a pastor of a church in Boston. He fell in love with Ellen Tucker and married her in 1829. The sudden death of Ellen in 1831 was a great loss to Emerson, and he resigned from the church. Went to Europe, visited many places in the continent. While in England, he met Coleridge, Wordsworth, and Carlyle. The exchange of ideas between these gentlemen and Emerson were a turning point again, and the ideas and thoughts were exchanged. After his visit to Europe, he moved to Concord. In Concord, his friends were Alcott, Ellery, Hawthorne, Thoreau, Margaret Fuller, and other transcendentalists. There, they formed the Transcendentalist Club, and undoubtedly the leader of Transcendentalism in America was R.W. Emerson. Emerson began public lecturing, and for some time from 1842 to 1844 he edited the Dial. Emerson was an original thinker, orator, philosopher, and author of great repute. Let us now discuss some of his important prose works. The Journals, published in 1820 to 76. Now, this time range from 1820 to 76 is the time range of the journals, and it is a complete record of the development as a writer and a window to his mind and ideas. Now, this is a great work. Then again, Nature, published in 1836. The American Scholar, which is prescribed in your course, was published in 1837. Actually, a speech delivered by Emerson, a great speech, The American Scholar. Then his essays, the first series appeared in 1841, including titles like Love, Friendship, Self-Reliance, The Oversoul, Compensation, Spiritual Laws. Then the second series of his essays appeared in 1843, and some of the important titles included in the second series were The Poet, Experience, Nature, New England Reformers. So the second series of essays contained these topics. Then Representative Men appeared in 1850. English Tracts appeared in 1856. The Conduct of Life in 1860. Society and Solitude 1870. Letters to Carlyle in 1883. Lectures and Biographical Sketches in 1884. Now let us discuss in brief about the American Scholar. Now, dear students, as you all know, this particular speech was made by Emerson on August 31st, 1837 to the Phi Beta Kappa Society of Harvard College at the First Parish in Cambridge, and this speech was later transcribed into text and it is now included in your course. He was invited to speak in recognition of his groundbreaking work Nature, which appeared in 1836. He advocated in this essay, in this speech, he advocated to come out of the European influence. That is, by now, America and American literature, American thought, American ideas, they were governed by the influence of Europe. In this particular speech, he advocated to come out from the European influence. And he said that even 60 years after declaration of the independence, American culture was still influenced by Europe. Emerson was of the opinion that even after 60 years of American independence, American culture, it was still influenced by the European influence, European ideas. Emerson, he provided a visionary philosophical framework for escaping, I quote, from under its iron lids and carve out a new distinctly American cultural identity. So dear students, in this speech, the American scholar Emerson, he advocates to carve out a new distinctly American cultural identity, and he advocates to shed away the influence of the continent. Now, some of the important points which he discussed in this particular speech, the American scholar, are that all are fragments. We all individuals, we all are fragments. I quote, as the hand is divided into fingers, unquote, of a greater creature which is mankind itself. So, Emerson, he lays stress on the welfare of mankind, and in this speech, he gives us for thought the two states of an individual in which he lives in. What are these two states? Let us find out. The first is the busy, divided or degenerate state, and the other is the right state in which he is elevated for man at one with all mankind. So he advocates to shed away the first divided and degenerate state, and he advocates to adopt the right state, that is the second state in which he is elevated. He here is the individual is elevated to man at one with all mankind, where he is helpful to his own kind. Emerson, he advocates the American scholar, that is the American people, the American youth, to achieve this higher state of mind, the second state which I just briefed about. And he says that the modern American scholar, he must reject old ideas here, the ideas of Europe, the old thinking, old influence of Europe, and think for him or herself to become man thinking. Now this is important. He motivates the youth of America to think out of the box, to think new, and he says that a mere thinker, or a still worse, the parrot of other man's thinking, I unquote, the victim of society, the staggered intellect of this continent. So these are the very words he uses in his speech. He motivates, he advocates, and he motivates the scholar, the youth of America, to shed away the old ideas, old influences of the continent, that is Europe, England, and think out of the box, and to he motivates also the American youth to inculcate a new literary form, to carve out a new literary identity, and to carve out a distinct, unique literary culture, that is the American culture. He says that the scholar's education must be governed by the influences of nature. First is nature. He says that any education, it must be governed by the influences of nature as the most important influence of the mind, because nature, it is the most important influence on anyone's thinking process, anyone's mind. And as I told you, in England he met Wordsworth, Coleridge and Carlyle, and he was greatly influenced by them. That is why nature here dominates the thinking of a youth's mind. Second influence is the past manifest in books. He says that the past, which is the already written work, which is now uh, binded in book forms, it should be shed away. We should not go with the past manifest in books, but we should garner, we should gather, we should uh, improve our knowledge by reading the important documents of the past, which is now available to us in the forms of books. So the past, the history of any continent, any country, any author, it will also help in uh, manifesting new ideas. And the third point which he discusses, action and its relation to experience. He says we should all be active, we should all be in a active mode. We should not be just shy away from doing anything, because by doing anything, by doing something new, by coming out into the nature, it will enrich our ideas and it will give us new experiences, and we will be able to gain from our actions. The last part of the text, it is devoted to Emerson's views on the duties of the American scholar, that you are the youth of America and there are certain duties which you should also follow, and these are the duties for your country. Emerson, he was a great thinker, mystic, who tried to illuminate the inward spirit of the individual. In his writings and speeches, he is concerned with the problems and dilemmas of the youth, and the main focus of this speech, The American Scholar, is to carve out a new cultural identity, a new thought process, and new ideas which should be coming out of the American youth. I hope you have understood certain things about Emerson and the American Scholar, a great speech delivered by Emerson. Thank you. We'll continue with the next class.